The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, laughter, and the clinking of silverware. The air smelled of roasted meats, freshly baked bread, and sweet desserts laid across long buffet tables. For most people, it was a night of indulgence and celebration, a charity gala hosted at the city's grandest hotel. But for Daniel, it was different. He wasn't there as a guest. He wasn't even supposed to be seen. He was a poor dad, a part-time handyman hired to help set up tables and move equipment. His worn shoes and second-hand shirt set him apart from the polished suits and glittering gowns swirling around him. Still, Daniel moved quietly, carefully, with the humility of a man used to blending into the background. Life hadn't been kind to him, but he had long ago made peace with the struggles. His wife had passed away 3 years ago, leaving him alone to raise his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Every penny he earned went toward food, rent, and Lily's school supplies. For Daniel, joy was simple. A shared laugh with his daughter, a bedtime story, or her little hand holding his as they walked to the park. As the gala continued, Daniel lingered near the edge of the buffet, checking for empty trays he was supposed to swap out later. He noticed the wealthy guests chatting casually, not a care in the world. He felt invisible, until a sound cut through the chatter. A sharp, desperate gasp. His eyes darted across the crowd. A little girl, no older than 8, was clutching her throat, her eyes wide with terror. The adults around her froze, unsure what to do. Some screamed. Others looked around helplessly, waiting for someone to act. But seconds mattered. Without thinking, Daniel dropped the tray he was holding. It clattered against the marble floor as he rushed forward. Kneeling, he wrapped his arms around the girl and performed the Heimlich maneuver, his movements quick and firm. 1, 2, 3 thrusts, until finally, the lodged piece of food flew from her mouth onto the carpet. The girl gasped in air, trembling but alive. The crowd erupted in applause and gasps of relief. Someone shouted, "He saved her." But Daniel wasn't thinking about that. He knelt down, looking into the girl's tear-filled eyes. "You're okay now," he whispered softly, brushing her hair back. "You're safe." That's when a voice broke through the chaos, a mother's cry, raw with fear and relief. "Sophia." Daniel looked up to see a woman rushing forward, her diamond earring swinging as she dropped to her knees and pulled the girl into her arms. She was breathtaking, dressed in an elegant gown, but her trembling hands and tears revealed something deeper than wealth, pure love. She hugged her daughter fiercely, kissing her forehead over and over. The woman looked up at Daniel, her voice shaking. "You saved my little girl." "You," she stopped, her eyes locking onto his. In that moment, gratitude turned into something else, curiosity. Daniel gave a humble smile, standing awkwardly. Anyone would have done the same. But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. He had seen it, how the others froze, waiting for someone else to act. He hadn't thought of himself, of the stairs, or of the social divide between them. He had only thought of saving a life. The woman introduced herself later as Emily Carter, a well-known businesswoman and philanthropist. Her face appeared often in newspapers and magazines, though Daniel had never paid much attention to that world. To him, she was simply a mother who had almost lost her daughter. Emily couldn't stop thinking about the man who had saved Sophia. Who was he? He didn't look like a guest. His shirt was slightly frayed at the collar, his hands calloused. He wasn't mingling or seeking recognition. When people praised him, he simply nodded politely and stepped back into the shadows. The next day, Emily tracked him down. She discovered he worked odd jobs across the city, sometimes cleaning, sometimes fixing broken things in small shops, always hustling to provide for his daughter. When she finally found him at a hardware store, he looked surprised to see her. "Mrs. Carter?" Daniel asked, his brows lifting. "Emily," she corrected with a gentle smile. "I wanted to thank you properly." She handed him a card with her number. "If there's anything I can ever do, anything, please let me know. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. He didn't like asking for help. I just did what anyone would have. But Emily could see the quiet strength in him, the humility, the selflessness. It stirred something inside her, something she hadn't felt in years. Since her husband's passing, her world had been built on work, responsibilities, and building a future for Sophia. She was surrounded by people who wanted her money, her influence, her power. But here stood a man who wanted nothing from her. Who had risked everything in a single moment simply because it was the right thing to do. Weeks passed. Daniel and Emily crossed paths again when Sophia insisted they invite him and Lily to the park. The two girls laughed and played together as though they had always been friends, chasing bubbles and running through the grass. Daniel sat on a bench, quietly watching, while Emily sat beside him. "You're a good father," Emily said softly, glancing at him. Daniel smiled, his eyes on Lily. "I try. She's my whole world." That was the moment Emily realized, wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts or properties. It was measured in love, in selflessness, in the way Daniel looked at his daughter like she was the most precious gift life had given him. Over time, their meetings became more frequent, playdates, dinners, simple conversations that stretched late into the night. Emily found herself laughing again, smiling in ways she hadn't in years. And Daniel, though cautious at first, discovered comfort in her presence, as though life was reminding him that even in loss, love could return. But their bond was not without challenges. Some of Emily's wealthy acquaintances whispered behind her back. A handyman? A poor widower, they scoffed. But Emily ignored them. She saw what they could not: character, kindness, a man who had saved her child and expected nothing in return. The emotional climax came one evening when Emily's car broke down in the pouring rain. She had been driving home from a late meeting with Sophia in the back seat. Stranded on a lonely road, panic began to creep in. But then headlights appeared. It was Daniel, passing by after a long shift. Without hesitation, he stepped into the storm, fixing her car with his bare hands, drenched and shivering, but determined not to leave them stranded. As he closed the hood, rainwater dripping from his face, Emily looked at him, and something inside her broke free. It wasn't pity. It wasn't gratitude. It was love. Pure, undeniable love for the man who always showed up when it mattered. Through time, trust, and small acts of kindness, Daniel and Emily's worlds, so different on the surface, began to blend. Their daughters became inseparable, and their hearts found healing in each other. And so, the story that began with a choking child at a buffet ended with two families becoming one. Not because of wealth, status, or appearances, but because a poor dad chose compassion over hesitation, and a millionaire mom chose love over judgment. Emily often told friends, when they asked how it all began, "He noticed my daughter when no one else did. That's the kind of man he is. That's why I fell in love." And Daniel, holding Emily's hand, would simply smile and say, "Sometimes the smallest act of courage changes everything." The message was clear. True wealth is not in what we own, but in how we love, how we give, and how we show up for each other when it matters most.